Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Jack Bialik, who's here to share with us the return of lost knowledge. So could ancient civilizations have been more advanced than we ever realized? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Jack Bialik's life and career have spanned the globe and the technology spectrum. His worldview was shaped by living in many states at an early age and traveling the world, giving him a unique lens on how different cultures operate. With a background in electrical engineering, his professional journey took him from working in the U.S. Air Force to a long, impactful career at Motorola and eventually to contributions in the White House technology initiatives and humanitarian efforts in Haiti. So welcome to the show, Jack Bialik.
Well, thank you, Marianne. Happy to be here.
Well, it's so nice to have another discussion with you about your amazing book. And for those folks that haven't heard our other discussions, why don't you share with us what first sparked your fascination with the idea of forgotten knowledge and lost civilizations?
Yeah, well, so the book is titled Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. And, how can you write about something that's lost and forgotten and vanishing even? So the point is, as I was doing research and collecting all kinds of ancient knowledge, which was a little passion of mine, I came across an astounding fact that is right in front of us. We see it every day when we're looking at historical items, that we will find a technology or a technique and then lose it, forget about it, destroy it, and then find it again. So, so this reoccurrence of finding something, inventing something, and then forgetting it, and then finding it again is a thing that we have done over, for as long as we have records, actually.
That's just amazing to me. And it's so interesting because a lot of times when people talk about ancient civilizations, they're like, oh, they were so primitive. They didn't know what they were doing. And we're so much more advanced. And I think your book really questions that.
Yeah, I bring up many, many things that were done 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Cataract surgery, batteries, computers, toilets, flush toilets, plumbing, vending machines, all sorts of contraptions and inventions, cranial surgery. I mean, the list goes on of things that we've done in the past and we're doing now again.
Well, it's interesting. We keep discovering new things that were done in what we quote call ancient civilization. I just saw a news article the other day about how I think it was the Mayans were doing jade inlays on teeth. And it's like, how we went for many years here in the US without even having knowledge about doing that.
I know.
Not jade, but just, the dental work.
Yeah, and sometimes some of these things, some of these inventions, if we could have remembered them, it would have saved lives easily. In Peru, they did, in 400 BC, they did cranial surgery. It's cranial on the skull, where someone was maybe injured in a fight or some sort of an accident or something, and they would patch the skull using a patch that was partially gold. And they were about 40% successful in their cranial surgeries. Now, that's 400 BC, so that's, what are we talking about there? 2,400 years ago or so. But they continued doing that, practicing that in Peru until the year 1400, where they were then 90%, actually, they've calculated over 90% successful in their surgeries, which is amazing. And yet, during the Civil War here in the United States, um, we were doing cranial surgery there, and we were only 50% successful in our cranial surgeries. So, if we could have kept that knowledge and saved it and uh, been able to use that again, we could have saved lives uh, in later years.
I know you've done so much research and continue to do research, not just for this book, because it's something that really drives you. Was there a moment that completely changed how you view human history?
Yeah, there was a moment of inspiration. You know how it is. You're sitting there and you get the light bulb comes on, and you say, "Wow, that's amazing." And I did have that. It took me 10 years to write this book. So I had that moment of inspiration over 10 years ago as I was doing a little bit of research and collecting some information. Um, and that's when it really struck me. And it actually had to do with a vending machine. Hero of Alexandria was a amazing inventor. He invented all sorts of things. And in 20 BC, he invented a vending machine. And it was this vending machine that gave me the inspiration for the book. So the vending machine, you would take a Roman coin, put that in the vending machine, and it would then dispense holy water at temples. And he had a version of it that would create steam, and the steam would go on the face of an idol and make it look like it was going to cry, so they could get more donations at the temple.
Oh
not
my
not much
gosh.
changes in 2000 years, but it is amazing that he had a vending machine, and they have the diagrams for it today. Yeah.
That is just remarkable that those things existed. Why do you think people are so drawn to mysteries involving ancient technology and all these vanishing cultures that we're kind of uncovering now?
Well, we like mysteries. you know, People like, they follow all sorts of things, UFOs, we see them, but we don't see them, uh, we used to have those bugs, we'd call them no-see-ums at the, on the beach where they'd be, maybe biting you or something, but, it kind of reminds me of these UFO sightings. But anything like that, really intrigues us. And also the past, we have a connection to the past. So these things are even more amazing when, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you started out saying, we think if it's older, it's not better. It's not necessarily the case. I just got back from a amazing Mediterranean cruise. Went to so many places, and I had the chance to go to a place on Santorini Island, uh, and it's called Akrotiri. And Akrotiri is a settlement there that was covered in ash in about 1500 BC. Similar to how Pompeii was covered in ash. And they were able to, you know, um, find the city because it was just covered instantly. Uh, uh, Unlike Pompeii, Santorini had no people in it. They only had the buildings and any artifacts that were there. So it's an interesting archaeological site. And if you ever get a chance to go there, I recommend you go see this because it's quite well preserved, and they have a nice rooftop over it. It's huge. They think they've only uncovered a small percentage of the settlement. But here's the interesting thing. they had hot and cold running water in 1500 BC, as well as sewers. And on top of that, they had flush toilets. And you get that? They had flush toilets. Now, they had to take the water and put it in a container up above that would make the water come down and clean out the toilet. But, that's 1500 BC. Just amazing. And hot water. How'd they get hot water? They lived near a volcano, of course, because it was the volcano that destroyed them. But, the technology that they had, they have the same needs that we had. And so they looked for solutions. And the other interesting thing they had was they had buildings that were 3 stories high as 3 stories, which was kind of amazing for that time. But the buildings were earthquake proof. I think that's a modern invention, isn't it? Maybe not.
I'm shocked to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look up the Akrotiri there on the web, you can see the pictures of the buildings. They've preserved them. It's really, really amazing. So the technology and the needs are the same. If you were 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, you have the same needs as you have today. So humankind is always looking for a solution.
So, why do you think we often underestimate ancient civilizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. But I think we tend to think that we are better. Even in business, I work doing project management in business, and we would always be coming up with ways to do bigger and better projects, do them faster, better, all the ways to save money and time and not have problems. But we always think that we need to come up with a better idea. And sometimes maybe the old ideas can be just as useful as the ones we have today. I mean, we get a little, maybe self-centered. I don't know. Thinking, well, we can do this better, but there are ways, even in business, where we keep track of, lessons learned, how we did something wrong last time so we can learn from it. And that really is the lesson that history has to teach us. And that's the only thing good that history is for, is to learn from. And you think about it, it's true on a personal level. If you have some problem in your life or something that's happened to you in the past, the thing that you can take away from it is, learn something, put that in your book of notes for your life, and then move on, because you can't change it. You can't do anything about it. Well, it's the same thing about history for our cultures or countries or cities or whatever the organization is. We can use history to get smarter. And if we wouldn't go around and destroy our history all the time, we could really be pretty far advanced in our thinking and our way of life.
Do you have another example? I'm sure you have many, but one that you like to share with us about something that was in ancient civilizations that we're just now uncovering?
Yeah, there are so many examples of things that we've found recently. I do like what we found in the Terracotta Army. This is in China, 210 BC. The Emperor Qin Shi built a mausoleum there, and they've been uncovering it. They have 7,000 statues of all kinds of figures, warriors, and chariots, horses, strongmen, musicians, imperial court figures. He had all these things built and put there to keep guard over his mausoleum. It covers 2 million square meters or 538 acres of space, just huge. And so they've been doing a lot of excavation there. And the thing that really struck my attention was the fact that they found swords there. Now, we find ancient swords all the time, but these swords were still sharp. And that's over 2,000 years ago, 2,200 years ago, that these swords were made. Now, how can that be? I mean, if you see a sword that was found in the Middle Ages or from Roman times, they're deteriorated and pitted. They're not in very good shape. But these swords were still sharp. How'd they do it? Well, they used chromium in their metal, in their manufacturing of the swords. So to me, that's just amazing. And we didn't start doing any manufacturing with chromium until the 1800s. So these people were advanced in that way, and in other ways. They won't even open his tomb because it's said to be booby trapped. Very interesting. The door to his tomb is made with stone that is magnetic. So that if you were to try to take a hammer and a chisel to open his door, it would just stick to the door. So, these people were smart too, really. They were smart also.
That is just remarkable. I had not heard that, but what a way of keeping people out. Oh my
A sticky
goodness.
door.
Well, and they would be smart enough also to incorporate booby traps so people couldn't get in, so that could remain a sacred space.
Yeah, right. And they got around, of course, they had the same thing sort of in pyramids. There were not really booby traps, but they had built them to make it very difficult for someone to get in. But of course, the thieves just dug a hole around the around the door, so they got in. I mean, there's always a way to get in. So.
Well, and so, I mean, we've uncovered some ancient history. How much do you think is still there to be discovered?
Yeah, well, the calculation is that we have only recorded 1.6% of our history. And that's an amazingly small number. So what are we missing? There's things being found every day. I just read an article where they found a factory that was 10,000 years old. Now, this factory isn't like our factory today, but it was a factory where they had different workstations where they would do different pieces of work in order to extract fat out of bones and animals. Because fat is very important. It's high in energy, and it was needed, 10,000 years ago to keep your energy up and your, this form of nutrition, part of your nutrition anyways, and keep you warm, keep your body generating heat. But they had a factory where they would do different operations at different points, where they would, slaughter the animal, collect the bones, chop the bones, and smash them, and boil them, and extract the fat. So 10,000 years ago, I mean, we started thinking about this, how to take care of ourselves long, long ago. But this is a recent discovery, just in the last year and a half, I believe, where they found this factory. So yeah, I think, as we continue to uncover things and dig things up in the earth and do excavations, we're going to continue to find more and more astounding facts. And who knows what's out there? I mean, who knows? Did we once have a civilization similar to our own? And then we did something not so thoughtful and end up losing it. It's possible. There's rumors out there that this sort of thing may have happened, but we haven't found it yet, the evidence. So I think it's very possible. Very possible.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, they're actually going over different jungles and different terrains with LiDAR right now and uncovering an immense amount of structures that we would never even know that was there.
Yeah. Is that in Mexico or is it South America?
There's South America. I just heard about one. I don't remember where it was, but it had massive sand dunes. So it might have been Egypt. I'm not
Hmm.
100% sure.
Yeah, I think you're right though. They're using that LiDAR um, all over. I know they were using it in Egypt. There's been some shows about that, and also they're using it in the jungle. I'm really astounded. How does a laser work in the jungle? That they can find pyramids, and all these trees. It's really amazing.
Yeah, the technology that's coming up. And it has me kind of thinking, I mean, is curiosity like play a big part in advancing human knowledge?
Well, we are creative beings. We're we're built in the image of God, and God's a great creator, created the universe. So, um, but we are creative, and you think about what we do. We create all kinds of things, and so we're always inquisitive. We're always thinking about, oh, can we do this better? Can we do this smarter? Can we do something to have more fun? Can we invent a better ride at Disney or whatever? We're always thinking about doing things better and faster and more fun. So I think it's just our nature. It's just the way we're built to do that.
In your view, what's the biggest misconception people have about progress and innovation?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is that, maybe that we can always do it better. You know, um, we can always do it different. I taught in a couple of my presentations to the uh, Project Management Institute. I gave a few presentations to them about how important it is to use the historical information that you have in order to do better. And I think we talked about that a little bit before. But a lot of times you can find little nuggets of things that were done in the past, and you can say, hey, I can reuse that again. We have this concept of reuse. We have that concept of reuse in our, for plastic or for recycling purposes. But we can also have that same concept in business or in our daily lives. I just took this trip and my wife keeps a list of things to pack. And what she does is just takes that list every time we pack and she'll change it. So if we're going on a cruise, she might have one list, and then if we're going on just a road trip, we'll have a different kind of a list, and she'll modify it. So I think that's a form of reuse, and it helps to make us a little bit smarter because you can't remember everything. So this is a great way to get smarter, to use the past.
Do you think that when we find any kind of ancient innovation that we're using some of that today, or is it just being looked at as like, oh, they used that back then, and we're so much more advanced now?
Yeah. I'm sure there are instances of things that we've found in the past that we've been able to reuse again. Um, but I think part of the problem is if you find something that's ancient and trying to figure it out because you don't have, like I said, we only recorded 1.6% of history. So we don't have the connection. So it's like hieroglyphics. Without the Rosetta Stone, we would have never figured out how to decode the hieroglyphics. I mean, they worked on it for years, and they couldn't figure it out. And it was just until they found the Rosetta Stone. So we have many examples of that in a lot of our ancient sites. I went to the site of Hagar Quim in Malta. In Malta, they have 7 megalithic temples. These are sites, similar to Stonehenge in a way. They don't look like Stonehenge, but they're similar in that there's these huge stones that are built in various configurations. And, this is, the Hagar Quim is 5,000 years old. That would make it potentially older than the pyramids in Egypt. And they had a stone there that was 20 tons. That's 40,000 pounds or 18,000 kilograms. So, this stone was huge, gigantic. Well, the thing that struck me was they had that one stone, that one gigantic stone, and then they had many other ones, and they're all in a circle in a certain configuration. And why? Why did they put all this effort in? And by the way, how'd they do that? But that's a different question. But why did they put all these stones in this configuration with that one big one right there? We only have conjecture. We don't really know why. We may think we have an idea of why, but we don't know. So we lose that connection. And there's many other examples of that. There's documents that we have, Minoan writings we have that we have not been able to decode because we don't have the connection there. We have other documents that we currently have that we don't know how they work or how they put them together. So, or wrote them. So I think, we really need that connection. And if we would just stop destroying ourselves, going around bombing ourselves or, not protecting things, maybe we could keep things for a little bit longer than a couple thousand years and really have an amazing life for our future ancestors.
So, are we doing enough to preserve today's knowledge for future generations?
We are trying very hard. We have a lot of organizations. There's a Long Now Foundation that is working to preserve and make people aware of keeping their knowledge for long term. Interesting, they measure dates with 5 digits. So this year would be the year 02026 to try to get people to think about the long term. They're building things. They built a clock that's going to run 20,000 years in a mountain in Texas. So we have that. We have the Slivabard seed bank in Norway, where they've tried to save our seeds. It's a huge seed bank. It has over 1 million different seeds in there. Although it's struggling right now, they're concerned because of the warming of the climate. Um, the seed bank is the temperature is going up, and they're counting on that cold temperature to keep those seeds for a long period. So, here again, we're having problems with our world, maybe because of what we do, but certainly we're adding to it, to the heat. But there are places around the world, to answer your question, Marianne. Yeah, there are places that we're doing things to try to preserve for the future.
I think it's something we really need to pay attention to, especially with this digital age. Is that changing the way as humanity, as we're storing information?
Yeah, yeah. That is another point in my book, is that we really don't think too much about it, and we need to think about it more. There's this concept of the digital dark age. I know some of the people out there may think, "What are you talking about? How can that be?" But I'll bet many of you have saved information on USB drives or thumb drives, or you may have lost information because your computer crashed. Um, these devices, SSD drives, even DVDs and CDs, they have a certain lifespan. Recordable CDs and DVDs only last 30 to 40 years. The pits inside oxidize and they become unreadable. I've had an example of that happen to a recording I did of my wedding. The other day I was looking for some pictures from about 10 years ago, and I was looking through some USB drives, and I looked through 8 of them, and only 6 of them worked. The other 2, I couldn't get anything off of them. So, how long does your computer last? It only lasts 5 years, maybe 10, if you're lucky. So our digital information is at risk. We need to be thoughtful about it. And that might be a little thing, just to all the listeners. Think about how you save your information. Think about these USB and thumb drives. Maybe keep your information in multiple places. Use redundancy for important things you have, or maybe print it on paper. That is a possibility as well.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, I had a backup system like 10 years ago that I'd had for about 10 years that just, no longer could access. It's like, oh, we're done. So I still have it, not knowing what I'm going to do with it because it may have information on there. It's like, well, what do you do with these things? And it's, you do the best you can to save the information. So I like how you're saying having redundancy, that could have actually saved me a lot of heartache at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a little extra work too. So, you got to set aside some time for it. But yeah, we just take it for granted. We're just saving the information, putting it on our phone, or it's going to the cloud. I mean, the cloud is good. I mean, it's good. It's got redundancy built into it as well. They have redundant data centers and things like that. But who knows? I mean, there could be some sort of catastrophe. It's interesting. I interviewed the head curator at the Computer History Museum near San Francisco, and they have all these old IBM XTs and PCs there, and they use floppy drives. You may remember floppy drives, Marianne.
I do. I do. I don't have any, but I
No.
do.
Well, even if you did, you probably couldn't read it, but
Been
but
too long.
yeah, yeah. But those drives at the museum, they become the floppy drives, that is, the floppy disks, become brittle and they will fall apart and become unreadable. And so what they've had to do at the museum is print the information on those floppies, print it on paper so they can save it and archive it. So they're going backwards. They're going from a new technology to an old technology. And, are we really thinking about our data and our information and saving it? Do you have some important photos or pictures? Maybe you want to print them out, maybe some important ones. You're not going to print them all, but maybe print some or put it in multiple copies, someplace on multiple drives or whatever. I mean, even that's a problem. You think about these floppies. If you would have put your information on multiple floppies, well, how would you even read that today? You'd have to figure out how to get a old computer, or I don't know. I don't even know how you do it today. So it's a problem. Data migration is a problem.
So, what can modern society really learn from civilizations that have declined or disappeared?
Yeah. Well, we can talk at the big picture of what they can learn. We can learn that we keep doing this knowledge lost over and over again. During the war in Iraq, we lost over 1 million artifacts. It's estimated. All kinds of museums were destroyed. They were pillaged by local people, by, blown up by the war bombs, soldiers, whatever. It was done by everybody there. It wasn't just the war. It was the whole event that occurred that caused us to learn to lose that information. And I think if we can take away one thing from all of this, is that we need to stop doing that to ourselves. We need to be thoughtful and think about what we're doing. Not careless. We need to be careful about our cultures. It's easy to do it on a personal basis, but to do it as a country or countries or as a world, it's very difficult. And maybe someday we'll figure this out. That is the hope, that we do figure it out sooner than later and stop destroying ourselves and our knowledge.
So, we've all heard of these lost libraries, ones that have been destroyed that carried so many records. Why? How do you think that shaped our history or even our understanding of history today?
Yeah. Well, this has happened over and over again. Another example, maybe we can learn from it. We've done this all through time. Even in 200 BC, I talked about the Emperor Qin Shi. He ordered the burning of all libraries in China because he didn't want anybody else to have the information. And if you were found with a book or papyrus or scroll or whatever, you were tattooed on your forehead and sent to work on the Great Wall of China. And so, that's an example, maybe of a forced loss of knowledge. But even the Library of Alexandria was destroyed in the year 300 by Romans, mainly because it had some scripts in there that were religious, and they didn't want them. So we purposely destroy information. A lot of times, it's political, or religious or whatever purposes. So hopefully we learn from that and we just start doing things different. Maybe we can learn from it and stop doing it altogether. This is called wisdom. Wisdom is the proper application of knowledge. You can have a lot of knowledge, but did you ever know someone like that? Did you ever know someone that was really, really smart, yet they weren't wise?
Oh boy.
Something that
I've
was
known a
silly.
few.
Oh no. Hopefully not somebody too close to you.
No, no. I've known actually a person that was brilliant, head of a whole hospital chain,
Yeah.
yet he couldn't change a light bulb.
Yeah. 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 We see that all the time. And, maybe our countries maybe need to be smart in that way. We have tons of knowledge. We have all this knowledge. We have a lot of smart people, but we need to be wise about it and how we use it. And I just liken it to the story about the child. Maybe I've said this before, but it's a good story. The child that you tell, now don't touch that stove, it's hot. So they have the knowledge. They know what hot is. They know what the stove is. They know what you just said, don't do it. But guess what? They go and touch the stove anyways, and they get burned. And then they say, you know what? That really, really hurt. It made me cry. I'm not going to do it again. And that's the way our culture needs to be. We have to have that wisdom at the very highest levels of thinking in the world so that we can stop destroying ourselves and our knowledge and wisdom and our information.
If you could recover one lost piece of knowledge from the ancient world, what would that be?
Yeah. I'll tell you, what I would really love to know is one of the big elephants in the room. Maybe this is a simple thing, but it's in front of us. The Great Pyramids of Egypt. I would love to know how they built those. 2.3 million 3-ton stones. They had to lay one stone every 2 minutes, 12 hours a day, 365 days a year for 20 years. That's 320 3-ton stones a day. I mean, could we do it? Yeah, we probably could, but it would be an amazing feat. Now they did this, it's estimated 5,000 years ago, whatever the date is. But how'd they do it? They didn't have wheels. They didn't have pulleys. Obviously, they didn't need wheels. They didn't need pulleys. They had some other way. How'd they do that? And the other amazing part of that is that people typically don't think about is how they cut the stones. So they had to cut 320 3-ton stones every day. So I just think it's a mystery, another mystery that we all like to think about. That's the one I really wish I knew about.
I think that's one that I want to know about too. I mean, you think about the manpower it would take. It's like, did they have that many people populating the earth at that time to move this much during that period of time? It seems like it would have taken centuries to do.
Yeah. And also, it does bring up the thought, did they have some kind of technology that we don't have, you know? And so it just makes you wonder, really, how'd they do that? So, yeah, we'll find out someday. Figure it out.
I would love to find out about that someday. So see how all that works.
Well, I tell you what, Marianne, I'll watch your show, and then when you have that person on, it'll be a great show.
Okay, well, let me know when you figure that out.
Uh,
Oh my goodness. In your book, you talk about digital dark age. So, what does that mean?
yeah, we touched on it a little bit there, but it really is the thought that from a digital perspective, we don't really think about the impact of what we're doing. Um, libraries right now have a huge task. I mean, they have terabytes, they have petabytes. A petabyte is 1,000 terabytes. A terabyte is 1,000 megabytes. So, I mean, it's a huge number of bits of information that libraries have. Smithsonian, for example, and they have a huge task of keeping their information current so they can keep reading it. What if they had a picture of something on a floppy drive? Well, they could print it out, of course, but what if they wanted to make it into digital information? And now you make it into a JPEG or whatever format you want to use. Well, JPEG just came out with a new standard. Well, not just, but they came out with a new standard called JPEG 2000. And it will supersede the current format eventually. So, here you have all this data, petabytes of information you have to transfer. And, you need, how much time do you do? And are you going to lose information? And is it going to be the same image as you had before? What about movies? What are you going to do with those? Are you going to take all of your old movies and put them onto what? Are you going to put them onto a DVD? Are you going to put them onto a hard drive? What if the hard drive, we don't use hard drives anymore. We use SSD drives. So let's put everything on SSD drives, or maybe we put it in the cloud. I mean, the problem is that digitally, we don't think about data longevity. We don't think about how we're going to keep the knowledge for a long time. And this is one of the challenges that our digital world is put in front of us. It's a good thing, but it's also got some aspects that we have to really keep in front of us so we don't lose our information in the future. They had an event back in the 1850s. It was called a Carrington event. And this Carrington event was a super large electromagnetic pulse that came from the sun. And so it was an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, and it carries with it all kinds of energy. And that hit the earth. Now, in order for this to happen, the sun had to be pointed just in a certain way. And the earth, of course, it's only going to hit part of the earth, the part that faces the sun. But this particular event hit, in the United States. And at that time, we had telegraph. We had telegraph wires. And when that EMP hit the earth, it energized all the wires and caused fires at the telegraph stations. Now I ask you, what would happen if we had one of those today? What kind of impact would that have? What kind of mess would that create if we had something like that? Talking about zapping your computer, we'd have information zapped all over the place. So could that happen? Yeah, it's possible. Is it likely? Who knows? It's just one of those things. But maybe there's some other kind of an event that could happen. There are possibilities of similar effect could be caused by a atomic bomb being exploded in space. Don't really think about that too much, but they did it once and only once. But, that would cause a similar effect to that sun-caused electromagnetic pulse. So that could have a huge impact on our digital life. So I'm saying that's one disaster that could occur, but there's also just our own intention and our own activities that we need to be aware of to preserve our digital information for the long term.
Well, Jack, every discussion we have is just so inspiring. Where can our listeners go to learn more about your book and to be part of your community?
Yeah, the best place, go to lostintime.world. Yep, that's a website, lostintime.world. That'll connect you to all my social media and to links where you can get the book. You can get the book on any bookstore or outlet. Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. It is always a pleasure and a joy to talk with you.
Well, thank you, Jack. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Lost in Time, Our Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge. Make sure to pick up your copy today at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers, and visit Jack's website at jrbialik.com for more information on his work and to be part of his community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.